Hello and welcome to Crooked Letter Sports Podcast, a show about Mississippi sports and the folks who play them. I'm Tyler Cleveland, joined as always by my co-host and dad, Rick Cleveland of Mississippi Today fame. Dad, you have a good weekend?
Pretty good weekend. Yeah. Finished that golf trip down in Destin. Played like a dog.
A little windy down there, I bet.
It was windy. It was wet. It was kind of cool.
Well, it was perfect here. I got out a couple times last week. It was nice.
The coldest I've been this year so far is in Florida.
That's wild.
Yeah.
That's wild. Well, a lot of people haven't had a chilly weekend. Apparently, the Reaper finally came for. I mean, who is our latest victim here? Hugh Freeze?
Hugh Freeze is our latest victim. There's several other heads on the chopping block.
Well, it's appropriate because our guest today is somewhat of an expert in national college football, and I'm excited to have him on. Our old friend Ross Dellenger from Yahoo, formerly of Sports Illustrated. He's been around. He's maybe the authority as far as the national scene for college football, and especially the coaching carousel, and with the latest in what's going on with our totally healthy and functioning Congress, who's making all these decisions going forward about college football. Right. Or washing their hands of it all together.
But you're right, Tyler. Ross is the foremost authority right now on college football and the wave of change that we've experienced the last 2 or 3 years with the portal, with NIL, and he's located right there in D.C. now, so he's well aware of what all's going on in Congress concerning.
or not going on, as you point out. Right. I mean, right now there's nothing. Yeah. Dad, before we get to Ross, I want to take a quick look at some of this from. Did you get to watch a lot of football on Saturday?
Oh yeah, I sure did.
Well, give me your thoughts.
Hail State.
Right. How about them?
Yeah,
the Bulldogs got one.
They won an SEC game. And they had to come from behind to do it.
Oh, man, they completely dominated. What are you talking about?
You remember my words.
Never in doubt.
I guess it was the last show. I said, State's going to beat somebody. And it turned out to be Arkansas.
I thought you meant like they were going to win a game they weren't supposed to win. Like when they said, "Oh, they're going to get somebody." I mean, that's how I took it.
Well, they still might.
Yeah. I think. I mean, there's a couple. They've got a couple of chances for sure. I mean, Missouri looking a little suspect with now that their backup quarterback, and that Egg Bowl. That ain't going to be an easy out.
Yeah, no doubt. Bottom line is, and I've said it over and over, they're so much better than they've been. You got to give Lebby credit for turning them around. I know it's just they've only won one conference game, but they're in every game they play.
Yeah.
And that wasn't true last year or the year before.
Absolutely. They would, a lot of people were talking about jumping off the bridge, so they should probably just hold on and give Lebby a hand back up on the bridge when you can. I mean, they've made improvements, and I think he'll keep going in that direction.
And by the way, Ross is a Mississippi State graduate, so we'll give him a chance to talk about his alma mater.
Absolutely. And Dad, the other big game, Ole Miss beating South Carolina 30-14, just kind of took care of business, but it seemed like to me, got to give a shout out to the fans that they, on a chilly night, they actually stayed. I mean, they didn't leave at halftime. It was a pretty close game until they pulled away late, and it seemed like a pretty good showing for Ole Miss, and one more step, I guess, towards.
They did what they needed to do.
Yeah. What do you think of that? You think they'll do what they need to do this weekend against the mighty Citadel Bulldogs?
Yes, I do.
They don't do spreads on those kinds of games, but if they were, where would you set the bar?
38.
38.
Yeah.
Because the Citadel is not like a good team. They're 4-5, I think.
Yeah, they're not. There's no reason for this game to be being played, really.
Oh, come on, man! It's an easy dub and some money.
Yeah.
You can't hate on that. The other game, need to look ahead this weekend a little bit, is Southern Miss at Arkansas State. Big game for Southern Miss, who's a 4.5-point favorite on the road.
A little surprised at that. I'd make it a picket game. I think Arkansas State, They've been playing pretty well, and the quarterback, he can run and throw, and he's going to give them fits.
How do you feel about an 11 a.m. road kickoff?
They're hard to get ready for.
Yeah.
They're hard to get ready for.
Well, if anybody can do it, I'm sure Charles Huff will be the man.
It's a big game for them. They need to win.
Yep. Well, that's enough banner for us two. Let's bring in an expert on this without some further ado. Let's get into it with our guest, Ross Dellenger. With that, let's welcome in today's guest, Ross Dellenger, one of our best returning champions that we've had here on the show. Ross, of course, worked with Rick at the Clarion Ledger, been very good friends for a long time. Welcome in, Ross.
Good to be on with you guys. It's always a pleasure and an honor to get a text from Mr. Rick Cleveland asking me to join. So,
hey Ross, what do you call yourself, from D'Iberville or Biloxi?
Oh God, no! I am not from D'Iberville. I mean, you can't say I'm from across the bay. No. I'm from Biloxi. Yeah, born in South Louisiana, raised in Biloxi. All my family's still in Biloxi. So we don't like those people from across the bay in D'Iberville.
Okay. Well, we got that settled. So where to start? Golly, there's so much going on, and you're right in the middle of all of it. Let's start with LSU. The piece you wrote last week about the history of the LSU football program, where it concerns the governor, was the best piece I have read lately, going back all the way to Kingfish. Talk about that a little bit. What about, how much do you think Landry, what role did he play, Governor Landry play, in what has transpired in Baton Rouge?
Yeah, I think he played a pretty significant role. And it's been, as you mentioned, right, it's been like 100 years of history of the governor's involvement in Louisiana politics, involvement with LSU athletics, and especially LSU football. And I don't think people realize how the history of that. And so I wanted to sort of bring that to light to a national audience. And it was amazing, the feedback I got from that story, and people just not realizing how intertwined these two things are. But to get back to what happened like last week, I do think ultimately Scott Woodward and maybe from pressures from the board and politicians, but I do think it was sort of his decision going in and firing Brian Kelly. But I think it's sort of what happened immediately after that way the governor started to get involved, because obviously firing Brian Kelly comes with a 53 point something, $1 million buyout. And I think that's where the governor had the meeting at the governor's mansion on Sunday night before they made the announcement, sort of finalizing the firing and trying to figure out what to do and how they were going to pay for it. I think from, obviously LSU and them want to negotiate down the buyout. And I think that what was talked about at the governor's mansion from the governor was, we're not paying this full thing, basically. Like we're not going to do this. So something needs to be negotiated down. And that was sort of like the last straw, probably the contract with Scott Woodward and him. And Scott Woodward wasn't invited Sunday night to the governor's mansion for this meeting, which is pretty much all you need to know about what was going to happen later in the week. The governor at the Sunday night meeting told the board members there to fire Scott. They didn't do it immediately, but obviously 3 or 4 days later, they did it. So he will, I'm sure, continue. Actually, today, while we're taping this, the board is meeting at LSU to decide our new president. And I think the governor will have a pretty big hand in who that is. The favorite was supposed to be Wade Rouse of McNeese State, who I think has a relationship that goes back with the governor. So he's involved in a lot of this. I don't know that the governor's going to pick the next football coach, but I'm sure he'll be involved, especially in whatever contract in financial terms LSU offers the next football coach.
Yeah, my sources, which probably aren't as good as yours, tell me that the McNeese State guy will be the new president, and that at some point Will Wade will be back at LSU as the basketball coach.
Wouldn't surprise me, because that was one of the issues in the it was in that story, and sort of the fallout between the governor and Scott Woodward was last spring, or this past spring, the governor telling Woodward that they should hire Woodward back, and Woodward not obliging. And I think that was one of the many sort of straws piled on top of the back of the camel that finally at the end broke when it comes to the governor and Woodward's relationship.
Yeah. Another place where you've worked in your career was in the Auburn area. You covered Auburn at one time.
Yeah.
Let's talk about what's going on there, because that obviously concerns a former Mississippi Ole Miss coach, Southern Miss graduate, Hugh Freeze.
Yeah. It is crazy. I didn't really think about that. I've been a SEC beat writer at 3 different schools, and 2 of the 3 are Auburn and LSU, potentially, arguably the 2 most sort of disorganized and historically dysfunctional athletic departments, but also historically successful athletic departments. If they can get out of their own way, they end up, it can be very successful. So when Hugh was hired, I think I was probably unlike a lot of other media members, and I'll admit, I thought that it made a lot of sense, and I thought it would work.
I did too.
Thought the fit made sense, and all that, and we're gonna probably look back on the Hugh tenure and go game by game, and you're gonna end up piecing together that things could have turned out completely different, if not literally for 5 or 6 plays this season, and really last season too. It's remarkable. They just could not close out games. And in the end, John Cohen, who former Mississippi State AD and baseball player and baseball coach, made the decision. And I think he felt like he probably had to at that point. The fans, it just started to getting pretty ugly that he had to make that decision. And now, for a 4th time in, I don't know what, the last 8 years, 9 years, John Cohen will make a coaching hire. And it's fascinating, because you look at his other hires, Joe Moorhead, Mike Leach, and Hugh Freeze, and they're all kind of cut sort of from the same cloth. They're all offensive-minded, innovative, creative guy. But it'll be interesting if he takes a different approach with this one, finally realizes maybe we need to go a different direction. And obviously the guy many people point to is the one at Tulane, John Summerall, defensive-minded guy from Alabama. It makes a lot of sense for there, but again, if John Cohen goes with, and I think he said this yesterday at a press conference, he said, "I'm the committee," talking about the search committee, which reminded me, by the way, randomly, of Joe Oliva 10 years ago saying, "I'm the search," when he ended up hiring Ed Orgeron. But if the John Cohen committee hires what John Cohen has in the past, it won't be John Summerall, right? It'll be Jeff Brom, or it'll be Eli Drinkwitz, or one of those sort of more up and coming, in a way, entrenched, offensive-minded, creative guys. It'll be fascinating to see what he does there. The pressure's on. He's kind of got to get this one right.
Well, what are the chances he ends up getting his first pick anyway? I mean, I think they're the 13th team to fire their coach in the middle of the season, and by my account, I mean I think the 4th team in the. I mean, I don't know where they would be in the pecking order for SEC teams. Probably right behind Florida and LSU, and ahead of Arkansas. But I mean, you got Penn State out there. I mean, there's where are they in the pecking order? And I mean, that's the first thing I thought is maybe they'll keep Hugh another year, just so they're not hiring in the same cycle as all these other programs.
Yeah, I think they would have loved that if he could have finished out beating
Oklahoma,
Missouri, and there was Oklahoma, and there was obviously Georgia, and I mean they've been so close. I think they were really hoping they could get to that sort of 8-win or so mark this year, and then go into next year with really high playoff sort of expectations. So you talk about pecking order, and it, the fun game to play is like, what's the better job, right? Everybody loves to do that. But it really is subjective. I mean, it just kind of depends on what the coach wants. Does he want a better path to the playoff? Does he want more money for the roster? Does he want a better cultural, geographic sort of fit?
Yes.
I would say when you look at overall, I think many people in the industry would say if the job's open now, and by the way, a couple more pretty big ones could open, right? There's one in Tallahassee that's probably on the way to being open as well. And that's another good job with an easier path to the playoff of all these jobs that we're talking about, probably. But I think most people would point to Baton Rouge as being the place where historically the last 25 years, anybody could win. Even if you are Les Miles or Ed Orgeron, you can win a national championship there because of the money, the resources, the passion, the home field advantage, all of that stuff down there. And look, it feels to me that Lane Kiffin's going to be coaching 4 different teams next year. Right? Like everybody wants Lane Kiffin, Florida and LSU, and I'm sure Florida State, if it comes open. I mean, all these programs want Lane Kiffin. And so we sort of enter this November in a fascinating situation because sort of for only the second time, the second year, we have the second year of the expanded playoff. But last year during the expanded playoff, it didn't really impact the coaching cycle because there weren't very many openings. There just weren't, right? But this year, man, like the expanded playoff is very much going to impact all of these hires. It's going to be fascinating. Do we see schools wait for a coach to finish their playoff run in late December or January? Do we see like an MOU secretly signed by a coach to leave after playoff run? Or do we see schools just make a hire, not wait on anybody in the playoffs? It's going to really be fascinating to see. And Lane has a great team that you could see going deep into December.
If you're Lane Kiffin, I'm just playing the devil's advocate. Why would you leave?
Yeah,
he's gonna come out of this making $12-13 million a year at Ole Miss, where there's not nearly the pressure that you'll get at LSU or Florida or even Auburn.
Yeah.
Which he's not going to go to Auburn. Right.
Yeah. Already turned down that. Remember a few years ago. But like, I ask myself why these coaches make these decisions, Rick, all the time. There is something about these coaches that they want to be in the best position. They want to coach in the biggest crowds. They want the most money, not just for them, but the roster, the staff. It's just sort of maybe how they're made competitively, is that's what they aspire to sort of be. But you bring up great points. In this era, and I think Nick Saban said this past week, like in this era of college football with the NIL, the athlete compensation stuff going on, the roster, like there are jobs that even 3 to 4 years ago, were on sort of a different tier, and now the tiers are kind of muddled,
Sure.
And like I think of Ole Miss is in that, right? And I'm writing a story right now in Texas Tech because they have a big game this weekend. Like Texas Tech has kind of changed because of money and oil money, kind of changed maybe the tier that they're on. You can win. Missouri is another one. Like you can win at these places. Vanderbilt,
Indiana.
Right? You can win at these Indiana. Yeah, you can win at these places that usually you weren't able to sort of compete at the highest level, and you can now because the athlete compensation in the transfer portal has distributed the talent in a way that we've probably never seen. So it's a great question to ask, like, why would Lane do it? And I'm guessing the answer is that, well, I want to go play in front of, 102,000 people. I want the most money and resources for staff, and I want the best possibility in the long term to compete every year for a national championship. And maybe you could do a lot of that at Ole Miss, and maybe he should stay there. But these coaches seem to be not built for that. So it'll be interesting this December.
Well, we were talking about it a little bit on the show last week, and I just don't know what you get in Gainesville that you don't get in Oxford except expectations?
Well, you get, again, and I answered that by saying you're in the middle of so much more talent. And I know
But
this landscape has changed, but still, I mean, whereas in Mississippi, there are probably, maybe one 5-star every 2 or 3 years in talent-wise.
Yeah.
And in Florida, there are buku.
yeah, well, luckily they invented airplanes and Skype. You know what I mean? Like
that's true. Yes, that's true. And the same with LSU, right? Like the talent around South Louisiana and East Texas, and the draw that, I mean, LSU recruits itself, right? I think it was the night that Brian Kelly was fired. There was some 4 or 5-star committed to LSU, like that night or the next day, and they interviewed the recruiting reporters interviewed the kid, like, why are you committing? There's no coach. The coach was just fired. And he's like, because I grew up LSU. I'm committing to LSU. And that's more than any other program in the country. I feel like LSU recruits itself, and it just always has, right? It's especially with those South Louisiana athletes. And, beyond any of the other reasons of night game and Tiger Stadium, all these fans, the money and the passion and blah, 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 like, that's why you would go there, to consistently get the talent. But you know what? Ole Miss has done a good job with the portal in getting a lot of that talent. But how long can that continue? Is that something that can be consistent every year? I mean, they've kind of proven the last few years that it is. One thing that I thought was interesting, and it's a good comparison to this. Rick, you might remember this because I think it was back, not to date you, Rick, but I think it was back in the 70s or early 80s. Bobby Bowden in Florida State. You can date me a lot more than that,
Ross.
Bobby Bowden in Florida State went to play at Tiger Stadium. And the story goes that he told people he was already offered the job to coach LSU. I can't remember who they fired at that point. But he was offered the job.
My guess is Charlie
LSU.
McClendon. My guess is it was Charlie back. Yeah.
It may have been. But before they played that game, he had the offer sort of in hand. And I think the story goes, he told his wife, if we win in Baton Rouge, it was a night game, I think, in Tiger Stadium. If we win in Baton Rouge, then I'll know that I can win a national championship at Florida State. If we can go win this game, and I'll stay at Florida State. If we lose, I'm going to be the next head coach at LSU. And I wonder if there's anything, if that's playing out in the mind of Lane Kiffin. If I can go on this run this year and not just make the playoffs, but win a couple games in the playoff, I'll know I can do it here. I don't need to go take that job. It's fascinating, kind of, 40 years ago, that these two things maybe a little similar.
The more I hear about where the money's coming from at Ole Miss, and everybody says it's not sustainable. I'm not so sure it's not sustainable.
They've been saying that for 3 or 4 years.
Well, trial lawyers have made a bunch of money in Mississippi, and most of them graduated from Ole Miss. That's all. That's pretty much. Yep. Where does James Franklin figure in all this?
Yeah, I think it's been pretty well known that James and Virginia Tech have sort of been dancing around together for a couple of weeks. I don't know that ends up happening, and I'll say I think that's because of what jobs could open coming up. I think there are a lot of jobs that probably are more attractive potentially to him than Virginia Tech, and so maybe he just sort of waits. And I can think of one again in Tallahassee that would probably be more attractive. Does Auburn dare give a look?
Well, Cohen hired his offensive coordinator, wouldn't he?
Yeah, that's right, Joe Moe. Yeah. Does if things fall a certain way, even does James get on the radar at Florida? And again, Florida State. I think there's just a lot of potential things to happen the next 2 or 3 weeks that James probably isn't in any kind of rush. But I do think that he probably gets something, and which is good for Penn State because that buyout of his is mitigated. So they only end up having to pay, I don't know, $10 to $15 million of the $50 million.
Yeah.
Only.
Only.
Right.
Well, it's amazing when we're talking in college athletics that $10 million is just
only $10 million.
Right. Yeah.
So let's talk about another place where a lot of money gets wasted. You spent a lot of time up there on the Hill. I mean, with this, I mean, it seems like there's a new development. Will they or won't they regulate college sports on the national level? And I keep seeing advertisements for the SCORE Act now. It seems like they've really ramped up, the advertising for that. Can you just kind of give us a quick overview of what's going on there and what we might see come out of this Congress if they ever get back in session?
Yeah, if we ever end the shutdown, it's been really easy to get a restaurant reservation in DC the last 3 or 4 weeks. Nobody's in the city, so that's been nice. But it gets really complicated. But I'm gonna break it down as easy as I can. There's sort of 3 things going on. One is the SCORE Act in the House of Representatives. In all likelihood, the SCORE Act will pass the House whenever Congress comes back. It does. It's my belief that it does have the votes now, and it'll pass the House. Then it'll get in the Senate where 2 other things are happening. One is the SAFE Act, which is backed by Democrats, authored by Democrats. It's not bipartisan. The SCORE Act is authored by Republicans. It's a little bipartisan. There's some Democrats on board. So you got the SCORE, the SAFE, and then you got a third thing going on, which is whatever bill that Ted Cruz is going to come up with that he's been working on for over a year. And I think it's probably, he's probably going to have something. So when the SCORE makes it to the Senate, the SAFE Act, which is originating from the Senate, and the Cruz, whatever Cruz bill that he comes up with, the hope is there'll be a conglomeration of these 3 things, and they'll come out and spit out some kind of compromise bill, and it'll potentially advance through the Senate. That's like the best. That's the optimistic view. Okay. It's probably unlikely to happen anytime soon because Republicans and Democrats can't agree on most things. And despite this college athletics or a college athletic bill being dubbed 5 years ago as a sort of bipartisan issue, it is not at all. It's been proven now for 5 years it's not a bipartisan issue. The NCAA has been arguing for a bill for over 5 years, and they haven't gotten it. So that's the hope of what happens. And again, these bills are all sort of different, right? The SCORE Act gives the NCAA pretty much everything it wants: antitrust protection. It eliminates the possibility for athletes being deemed employees. It preempts all these NIL state laws. It does everything the NCAA sort of wants it to do. It's very NCAA friendly. The SAFE Act does a little bit of that, but what the SAFE Act does is it opens the Sports Broadcasting Act, which, just to really quickly explain what that is, because things get really complicated. I know, I'm sure I'm boring. You guys need bourbon right now at this point.
Yes.
You're like,
that's
good
exactly
Lord,
what I was
Ross
thinking.
up from talking about Congress. But the Sports Broadcasting Act actually is fascinating to me, because if it gets open, then all the conferences, college conferences, can pool their media rights together. And instead of right now, they all negotiate their media rights by conference, right? There's 10 FBS conferences. They have 10 different media rights deals. But if you pull them all together, the thought is you can make more money. And everybody kind of comes together, kumbaya and all that stuff, right? And there's some people that want that to happen. There's 2 leagues that have the advantage financially over everybody else who don't want that to happen because they're at the place of advantage right now, the Big Ten and SEC. So all that's sort of wrapped up. So, see, it's not really easy.
No. Well, I'm sure they got most everybody at more money. It seems to be the only driving.
Yeah, maybe.
It seems to be the driving force.
Yeah, but the thing is, it's more money for everybody, even the Big Ten and SEC it is, but it's more equal money,
and more even playing field.
Right, which means the Big Ten and SEC would have to give up some of their current advantage.
That ain't happening.
Right.
Yeah. So what about, where does Tuberville stand on all this?
Kind of out. He's not in the involvement a whole lot with Cruz in negotiating and writing any kind of bill with the Senate Republicans. he's not been involved a lot with that at all. He was involved a little bit back in the spring with Trump directly about forming this presidential commission, but that's sort of been taken over by Cody Campbell, the big Texas Tech billionaire, booster, and businessman who's really close with Trump. He's sort of taken the reins of this thing away from Tuberville a little bit. Tuberville's not been any of the talks, at least that I've heard.
That's probably for the best.
I would think so. Yeah, I would think so.
We're still bitter over that damn pine box. Okay.
The pine box.
Yeah. Ross, I know you're busy and we're running out of time. It's always good to talk to you. And we, by the way, congratulations on your alma mater's first SEC win in 2 years. Yeah. Boy, they've been close, huh? Finally, they got it across the finish line. That is crazy, man. They're 4-4. And they're literally, they're like 3 plays away from being 7-2, 5-4. They're better. They're way better. He's done a good job, and
he's done a great job.
Finally got paid some dividends. But
that Egg Bowl is going to be worth watching, I think.
That I keep telling people, I'm like, you watch if Ole Miss has got to win that game to go to the playoff, which they probably will. Even with a loss, I guess there's a chance maybe they still get in the playoff. But like that game is going to be something because it's so unpredictable, as you guys know. And Mississippi State has really improved, and it's in Starkville. Yep. You could just see what's coming there. A 1-score game in the fourth quarter.
And I fully believe that's what's going to happen. I do.
Yep.
Yeah.
And there will be one thing crazy that happens, and probably in that fourth quarter you're talking about.
That's right.
Hopefully it does not involve peeing in the end zone.
You never know.
Let's hope, Rick. Let's hope.
You never know.
Thanks a bunch, buddy. Always good to talk to you.
Thanks for having me on.
Always good to talk to Ross, Dad. One of my favorite people to talk to, especially on any subject, but especially about college football, because I don't think there's anybody more knowledgeable on a national level.
Oh, yeah. He's really come a long way, I'll tell you that much. Yeah. Son of a Mississippi Gulf Coast football coach.
Yeah. It's fantastic. Well, I know it's interesting talking to him about this coaching carousel and the sheer numbers involved. I know you wrote a column about that this week that folks can go to MississippiToday.org and check out, just kind of breaking down the absurdity of it all. It's...
Yeah, the millions and maybe billions of dollars that are being spent for people not to coach.
Yeah. It's like I was telling Ross, I think this may not be, I'm starting to think this may not be the most cost-effective way to do this.
All I know is in my headline, I put, in my next life, I want to be a fired football coach.
You damn right about that. You ain't lying about that. That would be fantastic. Yeah, no, it's...
you give me about $5 million a year not to coach, I
won't.
I won't. Yeah, that's right.
Oh, certainly not. No, certainly not. Well, that's about all the time we got, Dad. Anything you're looking forward to this next week outside of the football? I know college. We'll talk a lot more about college basketball in the coming weeks. I know that kicked off Monday night, but anything else you're looking forward to?
I'm really kind of looking forward to that State Georgia game. I don't think that's not a walkover by any stretch.
It's a lot closer than I thought it was going to be spread wise, and I think they got a real shot. Just got to come out and play well. They got to take care of the football. That's the bottom line with them. As long as they take care of the football, and I think they figured out how to close the game. Let's see if they can do it to a bigger opponent.
Well, they certainly have the bigger opponent to try to do it against this week. Georgia's been the kingpin for quite some time in the SEC, so we'll see.
Yeah. I am also looking forward to seeing, just if I can remember, I don't even look up who the Saints are playing this weekend. How about that? I don't even know who's next in line for a butt kicking from the Saints.
I don't even keep up.
But I'm looking forward to that as well. That's all the time we got. Appreciate everybody listening in. Have a safe week out there. We'll talk to you next week.